Welcome back to another episode of The Relay. Yeah, we're back after a couple of days of not being on YouTube, but we're ready to get rocking and rolling again for the next couple of weeks. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the FIFA World Cup as the knockout stages have started, and we had some crazy games over the last 2 days. We're also going to talk about some of the craziness that has been happening in the NBA offseason within trades and also free agent signings, and some breaking news that just happened a couple of minutes ago, which we'll discuss in the second segment of the show. We're also going to put some superlatives on the running backs of the NFL as we head into the 2026 and 27 NFL season, and then we'll cap off the show with our predictions of Mexico versus Ecuador and the United States versus Bosnia and Herzegovina. All that and so much more on this episode. If you please would like and subscribe, and also follow us on @TheRelayMedia on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and YouTube as we try to grow those platforms. And other than that, sit back, relax, and let's run the relay. The books, the round of 32 field is set, and the tournament has already delivered everything we hoped for. Some stunning upsets, breakout stars, penalty shootout heartbreaks, and some of the best atmospheres we've seen have been made at this entertaining World Cup. Today we're going to break down everything you need to know from the last week of action, hand out our biggest winners and losers, and then look ahead to the next round of 32 games as the margin for error disappears and every match becomes survive and advance. Let's talk about the first game of the round of 32, which was Canada defeating South Africa 1-0. I didn't get to watch this game live because I was in Monterey, but I needed to take that trip, have a little bit of a break before we head off to the next round of 32 games, because I've been on the grind. We both have been on the grind for these last couple of weeks, whether that's working here or working for ESPN Fresno. But yeah, I was like, I need to take a break. And today's the only day that we have one game. We didn't have only one game on the opening day. That's crazy. We had 2 games on opening day. And I was like, this is the only day that there's only one game on besides like the final. And so I was like, I need to take a break. But I think I was glad I took a break, because this might have been the most boring game of the round of 32 so far. I don't know if you watched it, Daniel. Like, what are your opening thoughts about this Canada-South Africa game and how it played out?
Yeah, so I was actually watching this game. It was out of the 4 games we've had so far, the most boring. But
for sure.
It still provided a lot of entertainment, to be honest. It was a very chippy match. They weren't respecting each other at all. That was like, it was a weird game, because I'm like, these dudes it's just foul after foul, and then like these South African players, they just kept slipping. Like, no matter what, I kept seeing them slip all over. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I'm like, is the field too wet or what? But yeah, it was like, we still got blessed with that stoppage time winner, and I think that's what kind of elevated the experience, I guess, a little bit, but it was definitely very boring.
Yeah, Stefan Eustáquio, historic moment for him, and I think that kind of, regardless of what we want to say about that game, at least it had a great finish, right? And we had that stoppage time, 92nd minute winner that sent Canada through. This is Canada's first ever World Cup knockout victory. It's the first time that they've ever reached the round of 16, regardless of when it was a 32 or now a 48 team tournament. The captain delivered in his biggest moment. I think this is the biggest goal in Canadian soccer history. I know they won a Gold Cup, and obviously, some of the goals to qualify for the 2022 World Cup were pretty crazy, but I think this is the greatest goal in Canadian soccer history. Is there any doubt about that to you?
I don't think there's any doubt at all. I mean, how big, the World Cup is. Like, obviously, winning a knockout stage, it should be your biggest moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in terms of the game itself, obviously I watched it on replay, but for me, Canada kind of controlled most of the match. They kind of stayed patient despite having a lot of those missed chances. A lot of missed chances from those strikers in that first half. And I think another big point about this game that I really like, Alphonso Davies returned and he immediately changed the game for them, right? I think Canada is peaking at the right time right now, but they have a really tough test against Morocco coming up. And hopefully Alphonso Davies will be healthy enough to maybe start that game. But even if he comes on as a substitute in that second half, I think he can provide enough of an impact in terms of changing the game to try and get another, or not another, but an upset against Morocco to try and advance to quarterfinals.
Yeah, I did notice that a lot when he came on. That attack just got so much better. They were able to press a lot more down the wing. And there was just a lot more chances being created through him, which is very nice to see. You know, I love Davies. I was waiting for his moment, see when he'd finally come on. And it finally happened. I don't know if he'll start though. I want to say he's on a minutes restriction if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's what I figured as well.
But just like you said, even just him coming in at the second half would change this team a lot.
Yeah, and for South Africa's side of things, you know, they defended as well as they could for 90 plus minutes. Had a couple of chances themselves, and you know, I liked the lineup that Hugo Bruce went out there with. I think it was a little bit of an issue in that Mexico game because I just think he got it completely wrong from the jump. But ever since then, I thought that the structure, regardless of the play, the structure of the South Africa team was way better than when it was against the Mexicans. I thought Ronwen Williams was the best player for this team throughout this entire World Cup. The goalkeeper for South Africa had some big saves in basically every game of this tournament, and came up with some big saves in this one as well. But the tournament's going to end for the South Africans, but to even reach the knockout stage for the first time in their history, I think it's a credit to that South African team to dig themselves out of the hole, the proverbial hole, not necessarily like goal difference, but like the mindset hole that they were in when it came to that loss against Mexico.
Yeah, it was a great rebound. You know, I was very surprised to see that how, you know, they were being shamed basically with how poor they played in that Mexico game. You know, there was a bunch of stuff being thrown at them just for them to come back, finish second in that group when everybody thought South Korea would be there. So it was still a great moment for them. Still, I think a successful in itself for them in that tournament.
Yeah, I think it's a successful World Cup. Would you? I'm just gonna cap this off. Do you think that South Africa, this is like one of the biggest surprises of this tournament, or do you think that this is a kind of a group that I think round of 32 was kind of their ceiling anyway, and they met their ceiling? But do you think that this was like one of the surprises of the tournament to you?
I think it's a bit of a surprise because I didn't have them getting out of the groups, and if I did, they would have been a third place team. But I personally didn't have them, so I think it's a surprise. But the round of 32 would have been their ceiling anyways.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a surprise to me because, you know, a lot of people had them in fourth. I had them in third. I had them ahead of Czechia. I did not have them ahead of South Korea. Like, that was a crazy victory. And I think you can attest that to how bad of a coaching job was done in South Korea. But regardless of that, shout out South Africa. Canada moves on. A big win for them and a big matchup coming up in Houston for them against the Moroccans. All right, next game, Brazil defeat Japan 2-1. A back and forth affair in the first half. The second half was largely dominated by Brazil. And I think this is a classic case of Hajime Moriyasu just respecting the opponent a little too much. I thought they let the foot off the gas way too early in that game. And if you look at the substitutions, a lot of the substitutions happened after the first goal, but I don't know if it was around the time of the first goal. But you took off Junya Ito, you took off Daichi Kamara, you took off a lot of the bite of this offense for the Japanese, and I kind of think that telegraphed to the Brazilians that this team is not going to be attacking as well as they usually do, and that's with all the injuries, right? But I just thought that the substitutions were very wrong at the time they were, because a lot of the teeth of that attack was gone by the time Japan needed them to try and not only come back into this game, but try and win the game. I thought that Moriyasu made a real mistake with that one.
Yeah, it completely killed the attack overall.
Yeah.
One thing about this game though is I think Brazil struggles to get going a little bit as well. Just the way
for
from
sure.
when I was watching that game. Like
Yeah.
I think if you're gonna peak, if you're gonna take advantage of this Brazil team, it has to be early, like how Japan did, where they got that goal before the half, and I think it should have been that they really should have kept their attack up. I don't understand those subs at all, because at the end of the day, Brazil scores that first goal, you still have a chance with your attack to get another one back, and instead what I was guessing is they wanted to sit back and defend, play for extras, maybe even PKs. But
that's where I was like, they did that way too early, man. Like he has, Japan and Moriyasu and that coaching staff have this tendency to kind of like not necessarily fold, but like just bunker down and just go against the entire grain of what makes that team so special once they go 1-0 up. And this is not just a one tournament thing. 2014 they lose, or excuse me, 2010 they lost to Paraguay on penalties. 2018 they lost to Belgium on that last second goal after they were up in that game. 2022 they were up 1-0 on Croatia, lost in pens. They're up 1-0 again against Brazil, and they lost 2-1 in regular time. But yeah, again, I don't think this is necessarily them choking, but it's just them being so susceptible to the attack once they bunker down, and it's just not what they do. It's just against their game plan from the beginning, and we'll see what they do in the Asian Cup next year. But I think this Japanese generation kind of has to win that tournament to kind of justify how great this team has been.
Yeah, and side note with that, watching this Japan team it really does make me wonder how Qatar has won the Asian Cup. When I've seen both these teams play now, and it's just Japan's far ahead. But yeah, I think just with the fluidity of this Japan team, it should have been a keep pressing, keep attacking up until maybe the 80th minute. If they continue to be 1-1, then I think that's where you throw in your more defensive players and you go out and defend, take it to extras. But I don't think there's really much more to say, but I agree that this isn't a choke. This is more of just, going against their game plan.
Mismanagement, basically.
Yeah.
I totally agree. But, let's just go to the flip side. Brazil. Again, you say they started slow, and I agree that they've started slow a little bit over the last couple of games, but they survived this game. Martinelli, I was sitting here saying, why is Martinelli coming on? Of all people, I don't think he makes that much of a difference, but, good on him, even though I think the goal is more about Bruno Guimaraes finding him. I'm not going to take away how great of a moment that is for Martinelli. Came off the bench, really changed the match for them, and Brazil avoided a massive upset in terms of like the odds, but I don't think this was a massive upset if Japan were to win, because Japan has been beating great teams over the last couple of months. They beat Brazil after falling down 2-0. They beat them 3-2 in a friendly. Now, granted, it is a friendly, and this is a round of 32 game in a World Cup. But this is a team that beat England at Wembley. That prepared them for this moment, and they just weren't able to get that win in that round of 32, right? And I think the injuries have a lot to do with that. But regardless of that, I just want to leave it on Casemiro redeeming himself with that equalizer. Big moment for him. First half, he was like unplayable in a bad way. Like, it's just a really bad, poor performance. And I think this is a case of this could hurt them real bad in the later stages of the tournament. It's kind of like the Cristiano Ronaldo thing, where he scored 2 goals against Uzbekistan, and that was huge for him. But that might hurt that team long term, because they're going to think that they can continue to use Cristiano Ronaldo in a big time moment. And I think using Casemiro, even though they don't have any depth in the midfield. I'm not suggesting that you have to take him off, but I'm just stating that this could be an issue for them when they play a team like an England in the quarterfinals, or even like a Norway in the round of 16, right? A team that doesn't necessarily have the strongest midfield, but a team that can get after you, and also they have clinical attackers that can score goals on end. So I think this Casemiro situation, he redeemed himself in this situation, but this could hurt them down the road.
Yeah, it's definitely giving, like he's washed at this point and he's fighting on to his last little bit of hope.
Yeah.
But I think I wish they had more depth, because I would rather see Casemiro come on as a sub. But it really does hurt this team, because he's just not able to do what he was once able to do. And like it's a given considering his age, and I think a lot of people were expecting this already. It's like, oh, you're not getting Casemiro from like 4 years ago. But, he wasn't, I'm not going to say he was great, but I don't think he was terrible when he was with United. So I still expected a bit more than what we've seen out of him so far. But it is hurting this Brazil team a ton. And like you said, it'll come to hurt them a lot more when they come to face a team that was able to attack a lot more through the middle and down in. But just overall, I think it was a great moment for Casemiro, but we're going to need more from him if we want this Brazil team to go far.
Yeah, for sure. Also a little shout out. I think Endrick was great when he came on. Obviously didn't have the goal, but I thought he really was a live wire for them and really helped that team create the pressure that kind of, allowed it to happen when the goals did come. Paraguay, an insane upset, 4-3 on pens after tying 1-1 through extra time. They eliminate the 4-time champions. They win this is Germany's first ever World Cup penalty shootout loss, and Jose Canale scores the winning penalty. This is, to me, the biggest upset of the World Cup so far, but I didn't necessarily have conviction with Germany coming in, because even in the Ivory Coast win, I thought they didn't deserve the win. I thought that a point was probably deserved because of how Côte d'Ivoire played in that game. And they lost to Ecuador. They allowed 2 goals to Ecuador. And I don't want to hear anything about they had a second team in. No, their first team was out there for that game. And I don't understand why Julian Nagelsmann wanted to do that. And I'm not saying that it hurt them in this game, but what I'm saying is they lost in that game to an Ecuadorian side that could not score for their life against Cape Verde, Curacao and Ivory Coast, right? And so I just think that this German team is an absolute disappointment once again. I didn't have a lot of conviction in them coming into this game, and I will say that this is probably still the biggest upset of the World Cup so far. But what a way to go out for the Germans. This is just not something that you expect out of a team that has won 4 world championships.
Yeah, I think since 2014, this German federation has not taken this tournament seriously, and they have not made the changes to further elevate, be that powerhouse that they were. Because when you think of Germany, you obviously think, oh, four-time World Cup champions should be a powerhouse. But then you look at their last 3 results, and it's just terrible. And once again, it's just, I really don't understand what was going on yesterday. On paper, stronger team. But just the way Paraguay defended yesterday was phenomenal. It was locked down. And I was amazed by it because, this attack, I like Wirtz. Wirtz is probably one of my favorite German players, and he cannot create nothing yesterday, and it was insane to me.
Yeah, Paraguayan defense was playing out of its mind yesterday, but just to harp back on the Germany aspect of things before I talk about Paraguay, I think they need another reset. After they had a horrible group stage exit in Euro 2000, they started a reboot for this entire generation of German soccer players, German football players. The DFB came together and laid out a plan, and they won the World Cup in 2014 because of that plan, right? You built a team around technicality in the attack, a absolute engine room in the midfield, and defenders that were athletic but also strong. And while I think they have the build of that, right? I just think that this team doesn't have the heart and they don't have the technicality of those 2014, 2010, 2012 German teams. And again, that's what's hurt them over these last couple. First of all, this defense is a shell of what it was once in the last couple of years, or excuse me, in the prime years of the German, prime in 2014. This attack is basically toothless. They get goals, but they're not clinical as hell. And also, they just try and cross the ball against a defense that is very good at, getting rid of cross balls. Again, just a disappointment beyond belief. I didn't think that this German team was that good, but I didn't. You know that meme? It's like our expectations were low, but holy F. Like, that's literally what I think about Germany right now. Again, now talking about the Paraguay side, I thought even though Germany dominated possession, Gustavo Gomez was outstanding. And Orlando Hill, shout out to you, man. Huge saves. He's going to have a statue built for him in Paraguay when he goes back. And I think this is one of the best defensive performances of the tournament. Real quick, what did you think about the foul by Anton on Orlando Hill that disallowed the goal for Jonathan Tah in the second half of extra time? First half of extra time, actually.
Yeah, no, I thought it was valid. I thought it was I think it was a perfectly given foul. Just because he was limiting the ability of the keeper. He cannot, well, I don't know what the word is. I want to say he cannot make the save, but he was obstructed and wasn't able to, go out and try and make that save, at least give it a chance. And so I think the foul was probably the best choice there.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people get caught up on the flop from Orlando Hill, but it's still technically a foul from Anton on him. So I think because of him selling it, it kind of makes people think that the contact wasn't that bad. But I think it still obstructed him to the point where, it still affected his ability to save that shot. And regardless of that, I still think Germany, they should have never even gotten into that situation, right? I just think that that's just nothing. You really can't blame that moment to be the reason why you lost, right? I think there was multiple opportunities for them to win throughout this game. Last game. You wanted to say something?
I'm gonna say I'd argue that if he doesn't flop for that foul, they don't go and check it though.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Last game, Morocco, Netherlands, 1-1, and then 3-2 on pens. The Moroccans win. I mean, gutsy performance by Morocco to go out and win. Did you have Morocco winning this game? My camera just died. Did you have Morocco winning this game before this game started?
To be honest, I did. My heart was telling me Morocco, but my mind was going, okay, Netherlands is probably going to dominate this game on possession more. So I'm like, I was thinking Netherlands, but as more and more as we got into that game, I'm like, Morocco's got a decent chance. And I'm not one to say Morocco's an underdog because I don't think Morocco was an underdog per se. Yeah. Maybe a little bit of a weaker side, but I think these teams are both pretty equal. And so when we're going down into it, I saw Netherlands go 1-up, and I'm like, okay, nice goal, Gapco. I think this is how this game's gonna end. Stoppage time, that Morocco equalizer, and I'm like, holy. Yeah. I'm like, we're in it. I was like, we're in for a tournament now. In for a game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I want to start on the Cody Gakpo thing. I mean, shout out to him to go through what he went through with, not being able to have a child in this world. That is such a sad situation. And for him to still play and score a goal, shout out to him. That is a crazy situation to be in. But the Dutch and the Moroccans, I thought in this game, this is what elite football soccer is in the World Cup. You had two teams who I thought are genuinely, well, not just FIFA rankings, but in my own rankings, two top 10 teams in the world. And you saw the absolute elite defense that was being played out there by both teams, and the attacking prowess of both teams was on display. Both goalkeepers making insane saves. Bart Verbruggen had an insane save in that extra time where he denied, I forgot who he denied, but he denied the striker a goal. Both sides of the net are open, and him being able to get to that ball was crazy. And so just performance-wise, I thought everybody on the field had great performances. I think if you want to nitpick, I thought Virgil van Dijk, he really let that goal happen by Issa Diop. He lost his defender, and he's not the elite defender that he was in the late 2010s, early 2020s, but I think he's just kind of been downgraded to just a good defender. And so I think that really hurt him or hurt them in that specific moment, but regardless of that, I just thought that the performances of everybody on that field was insane. I mean, I also thought Morocco was going to win this game, even though the Netherlands were the favorite in this one, right? I thought that this was going to be an opportunity for the Moroccans to get back to where they were at the last World Cup, and I think they certainly have an opportunity to get to the quarterfinals now that they play Canada in a game that I think they will be favored in. Let's just talk about the penalty shootout in that one. I don't know if I've seen a penalty shootout that wild. My entire family was around the TV watching that, and not everybody's a soccer fan, but everybody knows about it. And I just thought that was one of the craziest penalty shootouts that I've seen. The Paraguay one, where Manuel Neuer saves the pen to keep Germany alive, and then Jonathan Tah skies it back to Berlin. I thought that was crazy. But then this one was as crazy. Only one save, I believe, in this entire penalty shootout, but we had 5 misses. So please explain to me if you can. Make sense of what happened in that penalty shootout.
I think the lights were just too bright for a lot of these players.
That's what it is.
It was an insane penalty shootout. I was at work for this game, and so I saw we're going to pens, and I'm like, damn it. I'm like, I wish I was home. So I'm mopping the floors, right? I'm like this. I put my phone on the shelf, and I'm just like this. But yeah, it was a crazy shootout. I think the save was the first. It was the first round, if I'm not mistaken. But
yeah,
I think, like I said, I think the lights were just too bright for a lot of these players. I was surprised even Hakimi missed. But
yes, dude, I was shocked that Achraf Hakimi missed that penalty of all the players. And then, a stat to kind of back up what you're saying is generally in soccer, 78% of penalties are converted. This World Cup, through penalty shootouts and just regular penalties, we have had a 55% conversion rate. That is horrible. And I think it is the lights are too bright for some of these people. The lights were certainly too bright for Germany. Did you hear the story that 4 of these players did not want to take a pen? Nathaniel Brown was one of them. Leon Goretzka was one of them. That is insane to me that Leon Goretzka would go out there and be like, no, I don't want to take a pen. Shout out to Jonathan Tah. Yeah, we're going to make fun of him for missing the penalty as much as he is. But at least he had the balls to go out there and take a pen in a moment like that, right? And I think the lights are too bright for some of these guys, as you said.
I think we're finally getting into the moment where these American stadiums are bringing the atmospheres that they bring for the other sports that they host. And we're getting down into it.
Well, that was Mexico Stadium. But yes, I get what you're saying.
That one too.
Yeah.
But I think we're finally realizing how good we got these atmospheres so far.
Oh, for sure. Norway versus Ivory Coast is happening right now. That's why I'm looking over here to my right, your guys' left, I guess. That's why Norway is currently drawing 0-0 with the Ivory Coast. They've had a couple of decent chances, but yeah, nothing of note. Just real quick, let's just go through some of these games that are happening today and tomorrow, and let's just give our predictions of what we think is going to happen. We'll leave the Mexico, Ecuador, and USA Bosnia at the end, but Norway versus Ivory Coast. How do you have this game going, even though we're already started?
I mean, I have a feeling this is going to go Norway's way. I think this is one of those games that are like, I think it'll be similar to that Canada-South Africa game where it's 0-0 most of the time.
Okay. I am going to stay with my Ivory Coast prediction. I was on that wagon before the tournament started, and I think they find a way. I think they played really good in that Germany game, and I just think Norway's defense is susceptible still. We saw that in the France game, even though they didn't play like a full team. How cowardice was that as well, right? Not playing your full team with a chance to win the group at the end of the day, but that's neither here nor there. But I think Ivory Coast wins this game. I think Yan Diomande and Amad Diallo is going to present a lot of issues for this back line when Diallo is able to come. And I think Frank Kessie has been playing pretty good in this tournament as well. France versus Sweden, I don't think we got to talk a little too much about this. I think the Swedes are in for a destruction again, like they did against the Netherlands.
Yeah, they're definitely in for a treat. I just wonder who we get a hat trick from today.
Ooh, okay.
Is it?
Do you think, this is a question, do you think that France win by more than 2 goals?
I think so.
Do you think they win more than, do they win by 3 or more goals?
I think 3 exactly.
Okay, got you. I think 3 is kind of where I'm leaning to. I think this is going to be like a 4-1, 5-2 sort of ordeal. Because I think the Swedish offense is actually really good.
Yeah.
Victor Gyökeres, Alexander Isak, Yassine Ayari's been playing amazing in this tournament. And Anthony Elanga somehow, not out of nowhere, because we know he's had the ability to do this, but I just feel like he's playing on another level right now. He's probably been their best player besides Ayari. I think Ayari's been their best player, but I think him in that attack has been exceptional. He had that insane goal against Japan in that last group stage game. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was insane.
All right, and then let's just obviously skip over the Mexico game. We'll get to that later. England versus DR Congo. How do you see this finishing?
I think it should be obvious. It should be like, in my head, this should be an England minimum 3-0 win.
Well, that's not going to happen.
The way England's been shaky lately, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a 2-1. Congo gets one early, defends for their life, and then England manages to escape with 2 extra.
I think we have this idea all the time about England, how this is a team on paper that is basically best, or at worst, they're like second or third best roster in the world. And we think that this team should be blowing out teams on a regular basis. But I think we got to take what this team has been over the last, I would say, 8 years and kind of just take it for what it is. This team is kind of like, in the sense of Argentina, where they don't blow teams out. They just grind teams out. They get their goals. They are able to defend teams, and they're able to lock down a win whenever they need to. I don't think this team is necessarily built, and especially with the roster that they have right now, where I don't think the attackers are as strong as it could have been if they included Phil Foden and what's your boy's name? Dang, why can't I remember? Cole Palmer, jeez. If they included those guys, but I just think that this team has a different style of play and a style of win than a lot of people think that they should have. And so I think that they're going to win this game like 1-0. I think this is a grinded out type of game, as you said, but I don't think we should be shocked anymore. And I think a lot of English people are just mad about the way that they play versus like the results that they're getting. And that kind of messes with the team when you go later down into the tournament, because you see all of this negative press about this team when in reality they're just winning games, right? Sure, they had the draw against Ghana, and that's a result that I think you should be able to be mad about. But I've seen people mad about the 2-0 Panama win, and I'm like, sure, they didn't destroy Panama, but Panama's a decent team, right? And so, for them to come out with a 2-0 win, I'm not saying it's like amazing, but that's just the style of win that they have nowadays. Okay, this one is really interesting. Belgium v Senegal. This was a knockout stage game that I did not see coming, but because of the permutations, Belgium and Senegal is going to be a matchup. And I think it's one of the best round of 32 games that this tournament has to provide. I know we have a high ceiling at this point, but where do you think this game goes?
I think this game goes in Senegal's favor. I think
agree.
just from what I've seen from Belgium so far, it's not convincing. Nothing's convincing me with this Belgium side. I think they got lucky a bit to get into these knockouts to begin with. And I think Senegal was going to take advantage of how shaky that defense is.
Yeah, we saw that this team, I'm saying Belgium, had a decent performance against New Zealand. They beat them 5-1. I'm not saying decent. They had a good performance against New Zealand. I should not be hating. But I also think that this team is just not built for a long run in this tournament. I don't think that they beat Senegal. I think Senegal will beat them. And it's weird that we're saying that with this much conviction, because Belgium won the group and Senegal got third place in their group. But I also think context is key, right? Belgium got first place in a group where they tied on points with Egypt, and they drew Egypt and Iran. Iran, a team that didn't make the knockout stage, even though I think they deserved to. And so, yeah, you have that situation. While Senegal, they lost to Norway 3-2. They lost by 1 goal in a game that was back and forth. They lost to France, where they had an opportunity to come back in that game. They brought that game down to 1 goal difference with 5 minutes left, and then Kylian Mbappe decided to just have a wonder strike of all wonder strikes, right? And then they beat the brakes off of Iraq. Iraq's a good defense, and they were able to do really well against them. So I think Senegal win that game as well. I think that they're going to, like their chances as we go into this round of 32. But it's kind of crazy that Belgium has now played 3 of Europe's best teams when we talk about their tournament as a whole. The NFL season is around the corner, a couple weeks away, and running back might be the most fascinating position in football right now. Some veterans are trying to prove that they still belong amongst the elite, while a new generation is ready to take over. From MVP candidates to breakout sleepers, every running back enters the season with a different story to tell. So today we're going to be handing out some superlatives to the running backs of the NFL. Most to gain, biggest bounce back candidates, most pressure, etc., etc. Some storylines that we think will define the NFL season in the fall. So I'll go first for all these categories. We got 8 categories. I did the same thing for the quarterbacks last week, and they're a little bit different than just the normal ones. So I have most to gain, most to lose, biggest responsibility, best situation, worst situation, breakout candidate, boom or bust candidate, and the offensive player of the year, dark horse, because at this point the MVP is a quarterback award at this point. So it's sad, it sucks, but that's just the reality of situations. There's no MVP dark horse in this situation. So I put offensive player of the year, dark horse. Most to gain, let's start with that. I am going to go with Travion Henderson of the New England Patriots. I think he's got a lot to gain this season in terms of putting a stranglehold on that running back. We saw running back position in New England. We saw that a little bit at the end of last year where he kind of took the reins away from Ramondre Stevenson. And I think that Travion has a real chance to, gain a lot in terms of where he is going to be in the pecking order of not just in New England, but in terms of the NFL of the best running backs in the league. I think he showed flashes last year of great explosiveness, but I think that this year he has a real shout to crack into that top 10 if he hasn't already. So that is my running back with the most to gain this season. Who do you have most to gain, Daniel?
So I think most to gain for me, I'm going to take Omarion Hampton.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
I think just in that offense, I think last year he had a decent season, only rough 500 yards, 4 touchdowns. But I think coming into this season, I think this team's going to be a lot more rejuvenated. I think this offense is going to be a lot better. Hopefully not as hurt as they were last year. And I think with that offensive line behind in front of him, I think he's got a chance, not break out, but gain a lot in what
Yeah.
versus what he had last year.
Yeah, I certainly think Omarion Hampton is in line for a lot of touches this year. I think that last year, again, if it wasn't for the injuries, I think he would have. And granted, you could say the Najee Harris injury is also a reason why he got a lot of touches last year. But I think that this is going to be his offense now. I think they got Keaton Mitchell as well, if I'm not mistaken.
I
Keaton
think
Mitchell's
so.
a guy that I've been very high on over the last couple of years. Yeah, they have Keaton Mitchell in there, and I think that he could take away a lot of touches from Omarion Hampton in terms of, just rep split. But I think that Omarion Hampton, if he gets the touches, will be able to have a lot to gain this year. All right, most to lose. Now, this is an interesting category. For me, most to lose, it's DeAndre Swift in Chicago. We saw last year Kyle Monangai came in there and was able to replicate and even surpass some of the things that DeAndre Swift was able to do. But I think DeAndre Swift really made a mark at the end of last season where, he kind of made his worth known, and he was a very good running back for them in the latter stages of the tournament when it came, or not the tournament, latter stages of the season when it come to the Chicago Bears. But I think he's got a lot to lose this year. I think if he doesn't perform to the best of his abilities, I think there's certainly going to be a removal of him in Chicago. I think Monangai is going to be the guy. Even though he's a 7th-round running back and he's a little bit on the smaller side, I think Monangai really did show his ability last year. And I think DeAndre Swift, again, if he doesn't have a good season, he's probably going to be out of there. And I don't know how many suitors there are going to be for DeAndre Swift to be the lead back on specific teams. Like, if we just go around the league, I think I could probably count on my hands how many teams DeAndre Swift would probably be the future running back for them. And so I think DeAndre Swift has a lot to lose in this season.
Yeah, similar to your pick, I'm gonna take what's his name? He's my running back. Jaylen Warren.
Jaylen Warren, yeah.
I think Jaylen Warren has a lot to lose this season. With the pickup that they brought in with Rico Dowdle, I think Rico's just
Right.
I think Rico gets a lot. With the season he had last year, I can't see Rico being a running back one. I think, or not running, a running back two. I
Yeah,
see him
Rico
being
was weird last year because he actually played really good, but he did not have that many touches at all. Like, I was looking back at his stats, he did not have as many touches as I thought he would.
Yes, it was definitely odd. I think he was sitting behind someone still, wasn't he? If I'm not
Chuba
mistaken?
Hubbard.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I see Jaylen Warren. If he doesn't step it up a bit this season, doesn't have a good start to the season, I can really see Rico coming in, taking his spot, and I could possibly see Warren out at the end of the season. I think this is his last year, and so he's kind of fighting to prove his spot to stay on this team.
Yeah, it's interesting because Kenneth Gainwell is now on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so you thought that maybe there was an opportunity for Warren to possibly get some reps there, but Rico Dowdle, I think, really does have that opportunity to kind of take over that position. Okay, biggest responsibility. To me, this is an easy one. This is going to be Christian McCaffrey in San Francisco, a guy that is basically their entire offense. Now, I think the addition of Mike Evans is going to alleviate a little bit of the pass catching responsibility, and also the pickup of Dejon Stribling in the draft is going to alleviate a lot of that, as Ivory Coast just hit the side of the net on a wide open shot. But that's beyond the point. Christian McCaffrey, I think it's going to be alleviated a little bit, but I think his responsibility is going to still be the same, and hopefully his body still keeps up with the amount of output that McCaffrey had last year. I will say McCaffrey's running numbers last year were actually really poor, and I think that it has a lot to do with the offensive line that was in front of him, and maybe after another year with these offensive linemen, I doubt it, but maybe they do get a little bit better. Maybe the scheme is a little bit different this year for Kyle Shanahan, because I think Shanahan loves using the running game, and I think he used the passing game a lot more than he wanted to last year when it came to clutch time situations and trying to get a little bit of multiplicity when it came to that offense. And so I think Christian McCaffrey is going to have a lot to prove again this year in terms of can he stay healthy with the amount of touches that he's going to get. If he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be up there with the Offensive Player of the Year shouts, as well as he has for the last couple of years when he has been healthy. He actually won Offensive Player of the Year a couple of years ago as well, but I think McCaffrey's got a lot of responsibility this year, and I think if the Niners are going to make a big run this season, it's going to be through Christian McCaffrey in the ground game.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. But if I were to take someone else, I think I'd probably take Kenneth Walker.
In Kansas City, yeah.
Yeah, I think him, new face in Kansas City, they're revitalizing this running game. I do think he plays an important role in this new offense that they're trying to promote. I do think that it'll still be a slow start, but I think he's the key piece that Kansas City needs for, their run game to be elite. I think Kenneth Walker is an elite running back. And so for them to bring him in is a great thing, but I think just with the past running backs that Kansas City has had, I've never thought of Kansas City as, one of those teams that has always had a good running back.
Yeah.
And so coming down into it, I think he'll be used a lot more, and I think he'll have a great responsibility in how this offense performs. Yeah,
for sure. I think that Kenneth Walker, for a team that hasn't had a great running back since probably like prime Kareem Hunt, this team has been needing that for years, and they finally get that with the Super Bowl MVP. All right, best situation. I think it's Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis. I mean, we talk about a guy that has an amazing offensive line, with also having the ability to, create big numbers himself. I think Jonathan Taylor's in a really good situation in Indianapolis. He has a lot of responsibility. There's not going to be a guy behind him that is going to take touches away. And when it comes to, having a great season, I think that Jonathan Taylor really has the ability to kind of double up on seasons where he is an amazing running back in terms of the stats, but also just the eye test of how this team performs when Jonathan Taylor is humming. I think it's different. And we saw that when Indianapolis was on that win streak early in the year, Jonathan Taylor was a linchpin at that running back position for them. And so I think they go into the season once again with a great opportunity to have a great season out of Jonathan Taylor. And I think that's why I have them, or have him, as I should say, in the best situation.
I think if we're going best situation here, I think it obviously has to go to Kyren Williams.
Okay.
Just, I mean, besides the fact that Rams team is a super team, Kyren Williams had a great season last year, rushing over 1,000 yards, had 10 touchdowns. I think he's in a great situation where this offense is already so good, and he provides so much to this offense. Now, granted, I know that they like to spread it around a lot in this team, but I think Kyren Williams is that one who is very much. He's your go-to guy when it comes down to it. You want him on these 4th and shorts, 3rd and shorts, and just he's able to get you that long run when you need it.
Yeah, the only reason why I didn't have Kyren Williams that high or in this scenario is because of Blake Corum. I think that kind of downgrades his ability to just absolutely go crazy this season. But I do think that he does have a really good situation in front of him. All right, worst situation. This is always a fun one to have. Which guy has some terrible options in front of him? I'm going to go with a rookie, and I'm going Jeremiah Love out of Arizona. Do you have the same answer as me?
Yeah, that was the one I was going to take.
Yeah, Jeremiah Love, when we talk about elite running back prospects, I hold this guy in the same regard of a Bijan Robinson coming out of college, where he is a lightning bolt when it comes to the running game, and he can change a team just like that. But I also think that the quarterback situation around him is going to be really bad this season, and I also think that the offensive line isn't up to snuff as it has been. Yes, they got an offensive lineman in, I think it was Chase Bizantis that they took in that second round. Let me see before I'm wrong. And he's really going to help this team. Yeah, it is Arizona. Chase Bizantis. He's going to help this team in the offensive line department. I love that as a second-round pick for them, but I still don't think it's enough for Arizona to have a successful running game. against some of these defensive lines that are going to be revamped this year. When we talk about San Francisco getting Nick Bosa back in the lineup, having a second year of guys like Alfred Collins, they just added Osa Odigizua. And so I think that's going to be and Michael Williams is going to be back, who's always been a great run defending defensive end. Seattle has a plethora of great D linemen. The Los Angeles Rams just added Myles Garrett. And so you're gonna run into a lot of great defensive lines within your division. And I just think that they just did not set up Jeremiah Love for success. And I'm not saying that they could have in one fail swoop, but Jeremiah Love himself is not in a great situation. So I'm going to put Jeremiah Love in this situation as a worst situation.
Yeah, you said it best. I was going to say Jeremiah Love as well. Like this is the one category where like I can't think of anybody who's in a worse situation than him. You know, coming out of college, being one of the greatest players of last season in college football, and you get put into Arizona of all teams. It's just, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I have nothing more to say. I think you said it perfectly, but yeah, I'm gonna take Jeremiah Love as well.
Okay, last three, breakout candidate. For me, this is a guy that I thought was going to break out last year, but he didn't really have the type of season that I was expecting when he got to his new team because Aaron Jones was still a big part of that offense. I'm going to go with Jordan Mason again. I think Jordan Mason, with Aaron Jones being a little older once more, I think Mason has the opportunity. I know he has the talent. I saw it in San Francisco in the flashes that he had. He really has the opportunity to break out this year. And maybe it was just the system with Kyle Shanahan and how he was running things. But Jordan Mason is a very shifty but really hard-nosed running back that can break away with his speed. And I think that Jordan Mason, with the situation, new quarterback there, they have a revamped offense. Hopefully Kevin O'Connell will get him involved a little bit more in the offense this season if he is healthy. And I think if he is healthy and everything is working out right, I think he has a real chance to go from a guy that we don't really know that well right now or that we don't hold in high regard right now, to be a very good running back when it comes to the end of the season. So give me Jordan Mason out of Minnesota.
Yeah, I like that pick, but I think my gut, similar to how you saying, thought they were going to break out last year, I'm going to give me Genty. I think Genty is now in the right, I think Genty's now in the right situation. I think the Raiders have done a ton to set themselves up and this team up. They obviously brought in their quarterback, but there was a ton of offensive line acquisitions, whether it was trading or in the draft, that I think that this team is a lot better, and I think this helps Genty a lot because we saw last year Genty was, quite frankly, not able to do much because that offensive line was folding like a pancake. And so when we go, I think this season, I think he'll actually have the gaps in the space to where we'll see what we saw in Boise 3 years ago. And so I just have a lot of high hopes.
Sorry about that, cutting you off. But I totally agree with you. Like, I think Genty has a real opportunity to break out this year. And I think that there was a lot of people, especially early on in the season, I saw this narrative that it's like Genty's fault that he's not playing that well. And I was like, sure, he was taken with a high draft pick, but that's not his issue. Right? Like, the team has to be better in terms of building a offensive system around Genty to make it work. That running back position, there's a lot you can do yourself. And I will agree that the pass blocking aspect of it, he was terrible in pass pro last year. But, and he can certainly get better in that aspect. But with the offensive line acquisitions, as you said, I think he will break out this season. He'll be a lot better. Last two, boom or bust candidate. This is a guy that can have an insane season, but also can have a pretty disappointing season. And I'm going to go with the guy that you put in best situation, and that's Kyren Williams. I think Kyren Williams, as you said, in terms of situation, he has it really good right now where, this offensive line is still just as good. And a lot of the brain thought of where we want to stop this team is going to go more towards the passing offense. I think he has a real shot to, break out this year. But I also think that with Blake Corum playing as well as he did last year, and also Kyren Williams coming up, he's going through his next contract, I also think that there's an opportunity here where Kyren doesn't play that well. I think in terms of ability, it's not to that aspect where he's elite. I think there is a lot of things that he can still improve on. And I think a lot of his success has been within running behind this offensive line. And so can he change that narrative to become a player that he is the reason why the running offense is good and not just Sean McVay and that offensive line? And I think he has a real opportunity to boom this year. But if Blake Corum has a lot more touches than he did last year, which I think he could be in line for, this could be a season where Kyron Williams doesn't play as well as we've seen him in the last couple of years, and that's why he could be a boom or bust candidate for me.
I might get a little slack for this pick, considering it's only his second year, but I'm gonna take Cam Scatterboo.
Okay.
I think because I think we've seen not necessarily Scatterboo's ceiling, but I think we've seen so far what he can do.
That's a better pick than mine. I will agree with you there. That's a better pick than I had.
I think obviously him coming off the injury, I think he's obviously thinks he has something to prove, rightfully so. Your season got ended early, and you were having a great rookie season. So I think he has the ability to be better than he was last year, but to elevate his game, be one of the top running backs in this league. But I also do think that just with this play style and the way the Giants are, he could just be this average running back who, he's not going to be what he was, his rookie season, and we'll be talking in 5 years about how, Cam Scatterboo before the injury.
Yeah. No, yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that injury could really hurt him in terms of long-term career, but if he gets back to health, this is a guy that can break the league in terms of the Giants offense. All right, last one, Offensive Player of the Year, dark horse. I'm not going to say that this guy's a true dark horse to win Offensive Player of the Year, but I think this is a guy that not a lot of people are thinking of in terms of, the Bijan Robinsons and the Jahmyr Gibbs and the Christian McCaffreys and the Jonathan Taylors, Derrick Henrys of the world. I'm going to go with Devon Achane. Now, Devon Achane was almost in my worst situation category because I do think that offensive line is pretty bad. But when we talk about the entire offense going through Devon Achane, I'm not lying when I say that. The entire offense is going to be going through Devon Achane. They didn't take any big name, weapons in that first round. They took an offensive lineman and a corner. And for a team that needs everything, I think that was the right choice. But he has a real opportunity to go out there and make a difference for this team and have the statistical output to kind of break this Offensive Player of the Year race. Sure, is his team not going to be that good, and that could hurt him this year, and that's why I think a lot of people don't have him in that situation? Sure, but I think that this is going to be a situation where he's going to have such a good statistical year, and maybe you watch out for the fantasy aspect of things with that he will be able to win Offensive Player of the Year. So give me Devon Achane at that position.
Yeah, this one's a tough one. I'm not troll, but, pick someone from my own team, but I'm not gonna.
Bro said Rico Dowdle's an Offensive Player of the Year dark horse.
Hey, I had my reasons for that. We'll get into it. But if I had to take someone, I'm gonna have two people on my list, or I'm saying I'm the same person on my list twice, but I think Kenneth Walker can be that Offensive Player of the Year dark horse. Because I think, considering this isn't a quarterback award, I think a lot of people have Bijan up there winning it this year, and so I'm gonna consider Kenneth Walker a dark horse just because, he's not the best running back in the league right now, to other people's standards. I'm not gonna argue that right now, but I think just the situations he's in, I think Chiefs obviously comeback year, had a down year. Everybody got hurt. Just not the year you wanted. I think this is the year where they're like, okay, we can make a push this year. Because Mahomes should be back, mid-season?
He might be back to start the year.
And
that would be crazy.
I could definitely see this. This could be a season where, they're back. The Chiefs are back to their normal winning ways, winning 12 games a season. I could see that, obviously, like I said earlier, I think this offense will run a lot through him. So him getting those touches he needs, I could easily see him rushing, getting at least 20 touchdowns this season.
Yeah, no. if you look at the odds, I think these two guys that we just listed are great opportunities to get a lot of return. Kenneth Walker is a plus 4,000 to be offensive player of the year. Devon Achan's a plus 2,800. And these guys are below guys that I don't think they should be below. Rashee Rice is above both these guys. Malik Neighbors is above both of these guys, which I think League can have a great season, but I think that injury is still going to be lingering a little bit. And you talk about a guy like James Cook, who is also ahead of them. And I think James Cook is a really good player. But in terms of the statistical output that you need for a offensive player of the year season, I think these two guys have probably a better chance to win offensive player of the year than a guy like James Cook. So yeah, those were our NFL superlatives on the running backs of this 2026-2027 season. A little bit of a break from the two-man segments, as I'll be going solo for this one, but we're going to be talking about the NBA offseason. We've seen a little bit of craziness happen over the last couple of days. Jeez, I can't talk. The NBA season may be over, but the chaos is just getting started. Giannis is headed to Miami. Teams are reshaping their futures through the draft, and the balance of power across the league feel like it's shifting by the hour, and every front office is asking the same question. Are we chasing a championship, or are we preparing for the future? So let's talk about a couple of moves that could be happening. And the biggest one that just came out today, LeBron will be leaving the Lakers. It's an end of an era. He has reportedly informed, per Shams Charania, reportedly informed the Lakers that he will continue playing in 2026-27, but it will not be in Los Angeles. He spent 8 seasons with the Lakers, and he led them to the 2020 NBA championship. And Rich Paul and Rob Pelinka reportedly spoke before free agency, so the Lakers could conduct offseason business without waiting on LeBron. And this turns LeBron into the biggest free agency storyline of the summer. A storyline which, we saw Giannis get traded away. We saw Ja Morant get traded away. The fact that 41-year-old LeBron James is still going to be the center of attention when it comes to free agency is just a testament to how great he has been for however long he has been. I also feel like this feels like a respectful breakup, not really like a messy divorce between the two teams. And the Lakers now have fully become Luka's franchise. And I think that really does help them when it comes to building this team out for the future. What I thought with LeBron was, I think this was not necessarily a liability on the court, but I thought this was a liability in terms of building the team around Luka Doncic. And I think now with this cap space being open a little bit, Luka Doncic is going to be a little bit of a hot commodity when it comes to playing with him. And so I think the Lakers will be able to sell that aspect of things when it comes to trying to pick up free agents in the future. And on the LeBron side of things, LeBron's next team could reshape the title race immediately. Some potential destinations that he could go to. The Warriors, I think, are probably the front runners in terms of where he could go, because Draymond Green just declined his player option. And where I think that is leading to is he is going to try and get LeBron and maybe Anthony Davis as well, which also I don't know how the money is going to work, because Kristaps Porzingis also signed a 2-year extension with the Golden State Warriors. Jimmy Butler is still there on the books. Stephen Curry is still on the books there. And so I don't know how they will be able to make that work. But I also have heard per reports that the only way that LeBron wants to play in Golden State is if Anthony Davis is there. I don't know the validity of that. I don't really understand if that's valid or not, but we will see when it comes to offseason. The Cavs are also another team that he could go to, going back to Cleveland, his hometown. I think would be an interesting aspect. I think he does turn both of those teams into title contenders if he were to go there. Both teams that were in the NBA Finals this year, the New York Knicks and the San Antonio Spurs, I think could be teams that he could go to if he were to make the jump there. And I think that really propels him into a situation where he could win an NBA championship in his final season, even though he wouldn't be the main star on that team. And some offshoot teams that he could go to, possibly the Heat. would be a team that I think I could see him going to, especially with the money that's there. And I also think that he turns them into an NBA Finals contender with Giannis. And then the Mavericks, I think, could be an interesting one with Cooper Flag. They have a lot of space there, and I think that with Kyrie Irving being back on that team, hopefully, Kyrie, LeBron, and Cooper Flag, that could be an interesting group. So I want to ask you guys, please comment down below, where do you think LeBron should spend the final chapter of his career, as I think he will probably be retiring after this season. Another big, obviously, trade that happened. LaMelo Ball went to Minnesota. This is the last big swing that happened around Anthony Edwards as they let go of Naz Reid. Looking at the trade, LaMelo Ball and Josh Green go to the Timberwolves, while the Hornets receive Naz Reid, a 2033 unprotected first, 3 first-round swaps, which I will talk about, and 3 second-round picks. I don't think that this is an insane move of the needle for Minnesota. I understand that LaMelo Ball, when he is healthy, is the caveat that I will say, is one of the most special point guards in the league when it comes to creation of opportunities and also shooting the ball. I find it very difficult to think that without some more pieces around this team is not going to be the same as they were in 2025, 26. Even earlier years, right? When they got to the Western Conference Finals. And I think the losses of Julius Randle, but mainly Naz Reid, is really going to hurt them when they play a lot of teams that are a little bit bigger. And so does this turn Minnesota into a title contender? I personally don't think it does. But I think if they are able to pick up some big men when it comes to the forward position in the next couple of drafts, maybe even get a guy like Aaron Gordon from Denver, I think this team can catapult right back into NBA Finals contention. But I don't think that this move specifically makes them a title contender. The first round swaps was interesting that the Hornets took. I believe that the Hornets are probably not going to be a better team than the Timberwolves over the next 3 years. And for them to go through with 3 first-round swaps, I think is super confusing, because I think that Charlotte wants better draft picks. And sure, they got an unprotected first next year, but the first round, the swaps just doesn't make any sense for me. And obviously Charlotte's going to think that they're going to be a better team. But if you look at that squad, they got rid of Miles Bridges. There's no LaMelo Ball there. So they are in full rebuild mode. And I don't think that they're going to be in that scenario or they aren't going to be in that scenario for the next couple of years. So we'll see that in the next couple of seasons. Ja Morant to Portland. This is a very interesting trade, which I think turns Portland into not necessarily an NBA Finals contender, but a true playoff team going into next year. Portland receives Ja Morant. Memphis receives Jeremy Grant and Chris Murray. And I think that Portland is probably getting the better end of this deal. I am shocked that Miami didn't go for this sort of deal. I think Miami had similar players like this. If they wanted to include a guy like Andrew Wiggins in a trade, maybe even a couple of bench players. But I'm surprised that Miami didn't want to go for Ja Morant to kind of pair with Giannis and Bam Adebayo. For a team that's struggling now a lot with the guard play, with Norman Powell possibly leaving as well as Tyler Hero, who left in that trade. I think that Ja Morant going to Miami probably made the most sense. But Ja Morant goes to Portland, and I hear that he is very happy with the trade. Portland didn't have to include any picks in the deal, which I think is a huge positive. And I think Morant's three-point shooting and shooting ability maybe still needs to get worked out for a team that struggled with shooting in the back end of last season, and jump shot shooting especially. This does not really help move the needle in that aspect. But I think when you talk about a young, explosive playmaker, Ja Morant is that when he is at the peak of his abilities. And so I think this is smart for Portland to try and build around him. Damian Lillard is going to be back in this team. Ja Morant is going to be there. Drew Holiday is there. And I think that kind of makes a really good trio of guards when it comes to all facets of the game, whether that's defense, shot making, or playmaking. I think those three guys present different opportunities for this team. Denny Avdia is still there, so I think Portland's gonna look really good in this aspect. I'm not gonna talk about the Giannis trade because I talked about that on the last episode, but I think that it sets up Miami in a position where I don't think that they're going to be good right off the bat. I think Giannis is going to look for the future. And maybe Giannis was thinking that this team was going to be a little bit better before he got traded there. But now you look at this team, especially with the guards, I'm not really enamored with how this team is set up. And I don't know how good this team really can be. And sure, they'll still be title contenders, but I don't know how much they can get out of guards that have not played that much. Besides Davion Mitchell, I'm not really sure where they're going to get any sort of guard play out of this team. Maybe they bring Chris Paul back. Who knows? Some other things that happen, I think I'm going to talk about one more deal. The Spurs keep Julian Champagnie. This is a 3-year, $45 million deal for San Antonio. I think this is a really good deal for them. $15 million average per year is really good. He shot 38% from 3 in the regular season. He shot 40% in the playoffs. And, the Spurs went 39-11 with a plus 10.1 net rating after Champagnie became a permanent starter for this team. I think this is a little bit of a boring, quote-unquote boring move for them, but I think it's perfect for the San Antonio Spurs, locking up Julian Champagnie long-term to stay in the title mix for Wembanyama when his contract ultimately comes forward. So I think this is a really good deal for the San Antonio Spurs. I think that this is some craziness happening. I'm really, in terms of the future, the next couple of weeks, what am I looking forward to? First, beyond the NBA draft, which just happened, and seeing how those guys acclimate to their specific teams, and real quick note on that, I think that I'm most interested in Darren Peterson in Utah because I think they can be a real good team with Jaren Jackson being there now, Walker Kessler, and they still have some really good, I was about to say Kyle Filipowski. That's not the guy I'm thinking about. Lauri Markkanen is the guy that I'm thinking about. This is a really interesting team in terms of how they're built, but with a tough Western Conference, I don't know how he's going to play. But I think Darren Peterson has a real chance to really break out this year. And then Darius Acuff in Sacramento. I am super excited. I'm an Arkansas fan, so I love Darius Acuff Jr. But now he goes to Sacramento, a team that's not really going to be that good this year, and I think that kind of helps Darius because his defensive liabilities aren't necessarily going to be tested. Even though I think the defensive liability thing is a little bit overblown. This is a team that needs scoring, and I think Darius Acuff has a chance to really run up the score in some of these games and have a really good season. For himself, just on a playing field. But back to the point I was trying to make. I am going to be very interested to see in the next couple of weeks where LeBron goes. That's an obvious one. Who Miami employs to try and help the Giannis trade look a little bit more like a complete team or in Miami. And also how the Warriors are going to, map out this situation. If LeBron doesn't go to Golden State, I think they still have signed Porzingis. Draymond's probably going to sign back for what he was worth originally, but I am going to be interested to see how they navigate this situation in Golden State, especially if they don't get LeBron in this upcoming day. So that's some of the big things that I'm looking forward to when it comes to the NBA offseason in the next couple of weeks. Before we leave on today's episode, we want to talk about our two teams as they have a matchup in the knockout rounds. The group stage is over for both of them. Mexico with 9 points, the United States with 6 points. They lost their only game, but they didn't really play a boatload of starters in that one. Only one starter from the first game, which I was shocked about that. I don't know, before we talk about this, I was shocked that Pochettino went with only one starter from that Paraguay game in the Turkey game. I thought there would be at least maybe 5 or 6 guys that would stay in there. Matt Freese, I was surprised didn't start because I think he needs as many reps as he can. I was also shocked that Malik Tillman didn't play in this game. And I was also shocked that Serginho Dest didn't play in this game, bro. Why are you just spoiled it for me. I hate you for that. But anyways, the expectations have never been higher for both of these teams, for Mexico and the United States, and the path to making history starts right now as both co-hosts enter the knockout stage with legitimate belief. Let's finish up real quickly on who we think is going to win. Let's start with Mexico versus Ecuador, which is happening today. How do you see this game playing out?
So, going into this game, as a fan, I am scared. I am scared of this Ecuador defense. I think this Ecuador defense is very scary. But, holy top ends, by the way. But,
Woo! I just seen it. That's crazy, man. What a goal. Was that Musa?
but yeah, I think it was Musa.
That's fire. Continue.
But yeah, so I can see this game still going 2-0 Mexico. Call it delusion, but as long as it's delusion, there's hope. And
Me during the NBA Finals.
I think this Mexico attack is a lot better than what people are making it out to be. It's been they don't start up fast. They have been terrible in the first half. This team is not great in the first half. But when you look at these 3 games so far, they have turned up the heat second half and they've kept the clean sheet. They've been great. They've been clinically great up front. I'm not gonna say this midfield's the best still. And, our not wingbacks, but fullbacks. Our fullbacks are terrible. And that's what scares me the most. Granted, there's not much attack from this Ecuador side, but we saw them put we saw them put 2 on Germany.
Washed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, he just is.
But I think that this Mexico side is still capable of keeping a clean sheet against this team, and I think they're capable of putting 2 down against this defense. So
this is the most 1-0 game that I could think of. I could see this going to extra time 0-0, and we go into a penalty shootout from there through extra time. But I'm going to say Mexico wins as well. I think the Azteca is not going to be as much of a positive for them as Ecuador does play at altitude as well. But I think that Ecuador, they got their big win against Germany. That's a big, boost in their mind, but I also think that this is going to hurt them in terms of what their performance is going to be in this knockout stage game. I think that Mexico, again, as you said, I don't think that their offense is generally bad, but I do think that they present a lot of issues for themselves sometimes when it comes to the attack. I'm going to go with a 1-0 victory. As Holland just, that's crazy that he missed. I am going to go with a 1-0 victory for the Mexicans. I think that they do it. And once they score that goal, I don't think Ecuador is going to be able to score, even with all that pressure. I think it's going to be a little bit like the Curacao game. All right, USA versus Bosnia. We got to go quick with this one. I'll go first. I think the United States win this game. I think that USA, they present a bad tactical matchup for the Bosnians. The Bosnians, where did they excel? They excelled in the Qatar game, which is the team that really sat back and defended and tried to make this game a slog. And they even conceded a goal against the Qataris, which I don't think is that good of a team in terms of the offense. And then the Canada game, they got that goal early on through that set piece, but I don't think that they played that well in that game. And then when you talk about a game where they were matched up against a really good offense like the Swiss are, they got destroyed 5-1. And so I think this is going to be a similar sort of a scenario that happens. I don't think that the United States get an early goal in this game like they have in the last 3 games, where they've had a goal in the first 10 minutes of a game in all 3. I think this is going to be a little bit more grinded out, but once the United States get that first goal, I think you'll see a little bit of a flurry start. And I don't think that the counterattack for Bosnia is good enough to hurt the United States like a Turkey or even an Australia would have been. So I'm going to go 3-0 USA. I don't think the Bosnians score a goal in this one. I think Chris Richards has a really good game. The USA keep possession, but I think that this is going to be a little bit of a later goal and a later flurry than we usually see with the United States in this tournament.
Yeah, I similar to you. I believe the USA will win.
I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will. I just realized, but yeah, I think I think it's a great matchup for USA. I think they got matched up perfectly, very favorable to their side. And I think it's like you said, they'll get their. I don't think they'll get their first goal within their 10 minutes, but I think once they get that first goal, they won't stop. Granted, I don't think it'll be like a big win. I think it'll be like a 3-0 win as well. But
That's
I think
a big win. What are we talking about right now?
Well, I was thinking more like a 5-0 win.
No, I don't think it'll be a 5-0. I think Bosnia's defense is really good and good enough in that low block to like prevent something like that happening. But the United States offense is clicking, right? They scored 8 goals in the group stage. That's the most that they've ever scored. And I think Bosnia, while they do present a defensive issue in terms of that block, I think the U.S. has faced 2 types of defenses like that in Paraguay and Australia. And I think both of those teams presented a much bigger counterattacking issue than Bosnia do. And so that's why I think this is probably going to be like a 3-0. At worst, I think that the USA win 4-0, 4-1 maybe. But I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I think it's a 3-0 win on my end. I think that this USA attack will get going, it won't stop, and it'll be in the Bosnian half for the whole game. So give me 3-0 USA.
All right, bet. And if we lose, I'm gonna blame you. Anyways,
okay.
If Mexico lose, you can blame me.
There we go.
There we go. Thank you guys for watching today's episode. Again, please please subscribe on this one. Please look out for some shorts. We upload shorts on TikTok and on Instagram. So please follow us on those platforms at The Relay Media. That's on TikTok, X, Threads, YouTube, and Instagram. Other than that, we will be back on Friday to recap both Mexico and the USA games, along with maybe where LeBron goes in the NBA offseason as he is going to leave Los Angeles. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.